All right, introduce yourself.
My name is Cameron Kemp.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna need you to answer three questions for me, please, for my EE extended essay. The first one is, where do you think our Bahamian dialect comes from?
I personally think that comes from our laziness. We just is like we lazy, so we don't be into saying the whole words. Know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
understand? Like I think it's nothing too deep. I just feel like we just wanted our own thing. So
So you think we just wanted our own thing and that we're lazy, so
right. So that kind
we
of
shorten the words, kind
pretty
of thing.
much. Right.
But you don't know historically like where it came from.
Nope.
Not at all.
Nope.
Never taught in school. No.
Never see it.
Never. All right. The second question is, do you think it has to do with your personal identity? Like, do you feel as if you're considered more Bahamian if you speak the dialect, or like, what's the difference between not speaking it and being born here, and how
Def-
people see you?
Definitely. If you want to be a Bahamian, first step is that dialect. If you don't have that, if that ain't natural, if that ain't rolling off the tongue, and the people will be like, you's Bahamian, but you ain't really no Bahamian. But you's a Bahamian if you got that dialect. People like like when you just anywhere and you just start talking, people just recognize, oh, he's Bahamian because they can hear it.
Yeah,
But like if you was Bahamian, but you have like just an American dialect, well, American accent, you
yeah.
should say, like people wouldn't know. So I feel like the dialect really plays a part in you identifying as Bahamian.
Last question is, why do you think it's not considered proper? Why do you think the Creole is not considered like? Why can't we use it like towards people that have more power than us, or people that we quote unquote like respect? Why is it not respectful to talk to someone in our Bahamian Creole?
I just feel that way because they just wouldn't understand. I don't feel like it would be like disrespectful. They just wouldn't understand what we're saying. They might take something the wrong way.
But like, we see there's occasions where like there's someone that has more power or more authority than you, but like they're Bahamian. But like, why would you not talk to them? Why would you not talk to them in the Bahamian dialect? Like, why is it considered disrespectful?
I feel like it's situational because if you're talking to like say your boss, like me at work, when I talk to my boss, I talk to him straight Bahamian. He taught me about Bahamian is no disrespect. But if I talking to a police officer, that's something they demand. They demand respect. So as soon as I feel like when they hear like that Bahamian dialect, they be like, all right, this man ain't respect me because that's something Bahamian dialect kind of casual. But we could turn that off and on as we please.
Yeah.
And you normally in a formal setting, you talk without the dialect. So when you're talking to like someone of authority, like you say, of high authority, I just feel like they would demand that respect, so they don't want to hear no dialect. They don't want to hear no bite. They hear bite, they be like, all right, this boy, he clearly don't respect me to call me sir or nothing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I feel.
All right. Thank you so much. Can you
Yeah.
please introduce
Yeah.
yourself, full name?
Hi, my name is Sarana Singh.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So the first question is, where do you think our Bahamian Creole came from?
I believe it came from Africans because a lot of our culture we come with a very, let's see, very vibe African type culture because we use a lot of like John Canoe came from John Canoe, and that came from slaves, and he was an African slave. So yeah, that's what I think.
So you think it comes from slave and African culture and stuff? All right. Okay. The second question is, do you think it has to do a lot with your personal identity?
Not necessarily because well, when we learn our Bahamian cultural thing, we normally we just like study the history of the Bahamas and our really personal identity. Bahamians normally we have a lot of African names technically because a lot of last names like Stewart and Lang, all of them normally came from Africans. So,
Okay. So do you think like when someone that was born here and they don't speak necessarily like the whole Bahamian Creole, if someone like that approaches a group, do you think that they'd be considered less Bahamian, more Bahamian, or just like equally, you know, as everyone else?
um, to be honest, everybody have their personal opinion on that, and my own is that it doesn't really matter. I think everybody is equal, and people shouldn't be like categorized in that because people come from different sources and not everybody has that full understanding of Bahamian Creole.
Okay, I understand. I understand. Thank you. Now, the third question is, why do you think our Bahamian Creole is considered improper or like disrespectful when we're talking to someone of higher authority or someone we quote unquote like respect? You know.
I think it's disrespectful because we don't use the Queen English properly and grew up and we learn and normal people grew up using the Queen's English and so people think it's right and they deserve to be respected because the Queen's English is normally like it's more proper and it shows that you care and you have respect for that person.
Oh, okay. You don't have to necessarily answer this, but I wanted to ask, why do you think we consider the Queen's English more respectful? If you don't have any idea, then you just say.
We considered Queen's English more respectful because once the English colony ruled over the Bahamas, so we would think that hey, yeah, the Queen's English should be more respectful.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, can you please introduce yourself with your full name, please?
My name is Georgia Louise Store Taylor.
Okay, thank you. So the first question is, where do you think or do you know our Bahamian Creole came from?
Bahamian Creole came from the different African languages mixed in with the English language of the people that came here to colonize the islands.
Ooh, okay, that's a good answer. Now, the second question is, do you think it has to do a lot with your personal identity? Do you think it has to do a lot with your personal identity?
The language?
Yeah.
Almost definitely, because each island, each colony that was colonated by different people have different, what we call Creole, because the people in San Domingo have a different one. The people that were colonated by the French is French, and there's the Spanish, and then there's the English. So each of us have our own different Creole.
But how do you think it defines you? And like, for example, let me give you a situation. If someone that was like born here and doesn't necessarily speak the Bahamian Creole, comes up to a group with people fully speaking this Bahamian Creole, like, do you think they'll be like considered like outsiders or like for you personally?
No, absolutely not. Because the thing about it is that the younger generation really, a lot of them don't even know the Creole because of education.
Yeah.
The Creole has been watered down in any case to be proper English, and so it's almost like you have to teach the Creole now because we don't really speak that as much as we used to anymore because it's dying out.
Yeah, and it's hard to teach it also because like it's only a spoken language.
Exactly.
It's only a spoken
exactly.
Creole.
And
All
basically it was the culture back then.
Yeah.
And as people, like I say, people evolve and people become educated and they learn to speak English, the Queen's English.
Yeah.
That stuff tends to die away.
Yeah.
Because in some households you're not even allowed to speak broken English.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that leads to my final question, which is, why do you think it's considered disrespectful or informal to talk our Bahamian Creole to someone like that has higher authority or, you know?
Basically because we are speaking the English language and because the English consider themselves superior. And they feel like everything that they do is the correct. So they taught us from slavery time to sort of like behave in their manner, speak in their manner, act in their manner, dance. That's why our dance is mixed with African and English. Everything is mixed, and the fact that it's almost like the head honcho is the one that determines the flow.
Yeah.
So because we were correlated by English people, everything about us tried to be like them because they taught us that we were nothing, we were nobody.
Yeah,
so we feel like we elevate ourselves by becoming like them, by speaking like them.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you mean. All right. Thank you so much. Please say your full name.
Blair Belita Tatiana Culmer.
All right, thank you. All right, so the first question is, where do you think our Bahamian Creole came from? Our broken English, question mark.
Broken English? I don't know. I guess a better way to understand each other.
Okay, so you just think it was something that came out just so we can understand each other in like easier ways.
Yeah, that's like back in the day when God do something with the pyramids and everybody spoke a different language. Something like that. That's what I think of.
That's where you think it came from?
Yeah.
Okay. The second question is, do you think it has to do a lot with our personal identity? Do you consider yourself more Bahamian because you speak the Creole?
Yes.
You think so?
Yeah.
So if there was a guy, like a group of people that spoke the Creole, and another one came, and he was born here, though his whole life he's been raised here, and he didn't speak it, do you think that they would act a certain way towards him?
Oh,
No.
no, but it's like how can you not? I mean, it all depends. If he don't understand us, we'll be like, oh, okay, what y'all talking about? Then it's like, you behaving like you really behaving,
Yeah,
but not
yeah,
act
yeah.
a certain way.
Yeah, I see
Not
what
like
you mean,
not an
yeah.
outcast.
But you think it's easier to connect with people when you know the Creole?
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
Okay, cool. And the last question is, why do you think the Creole is considered disrespectful, quote unquote? Like, why can't you speak to like people that have like higher power than you, or like your boss or your grandparents, etc. Sometimes.
That's just our culture. We were raised to certain things you can say, certain things you cannot say. And honestly, because I have a child, I wouldn't. I go off of it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So we still have that mindset as of okay, you can't say this to your mom, you can't say that to an older person, which I don't feel that's fair because if you want to speak your mind, you can speak your mind.
Yeah.
And that's what we like. We don't allow children or people to speak their mind freely. Now, I'm not saying be disrespectful, but like I said, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. 'Cause I let my daughter say, if she say, leave me alone, I say, no, what you supposed to say? Please leave me alone, mommy. Fine. If she wants to be left alone, she wants to be left alone. She's 2. So, it's not what
Yeah.
you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah, I feel what you mean. So, why do you think that in most cases people regard the Queen's English as proper? Like, why do you think our like Creole is considered like
Not, I get what you're saying. Like I say, go back to the day. That's a mindset. Proper English. I mean, proper English is proper English. It's not a slang. It's just English. The Queen's English is just because we're under them.
yeah
We must follow them. I mean, like, what's the sense of having our independence if we can't set our own rules, set our own
Right.
mindset? You know what I mean?
culture, etc.
Set our own, yeah, right.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Please introduce yourself. With your full name, please.
Wilbert Stubbs.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Now I want to ask you a couple questions. The first question is, where do you think our Bahamian Creole came from?
Haitians.
You think it came from Haitians?
Yes.
Like, what else though? Like, historically, what do you think it came, like, the language itself, like, came from?
Probably the Aucklands.
The Acklands?
I would think so.
You think so?
Or the Caribs.
The Caribs?
Yeah.
Okay. The second question is, do you think our Bahamian Creole is important to our, like, self-identity as, like, Bahamians?
Yes and no. Reason why I say yes, because it shows the diversity in our language. But then no, I would say no, because it doesn't really define our culture. So I feel like our broken English, or like people would say our Bahamian dialect, better defines us as a culture. So yeah.
So you think our, like, you don't think our Creole, like, is buried in like our culture, as in like music and stuff, like rake and scrape music?
Yeah, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
No? Okay. Last question is, why do you think people consider our Bahamian Creole disrespectful or like not adequate when you're talking to someone that has higher power than you, or someone that you respect, quote unquote?
I guess because people doesn't understand the meaning behind it and they use it loosely, and I guess they don't really, like I say, comprehend the language, and they tend to use it in the wrong content.
But like, even if even if the person understands what you're saying, why do you think, like a police officer, for example, why don't you talk to them in slang? Like, why don't you talk to them in Bahamian Creole?
I guess because they feel that person has a high authority and they must give them a level of respect. So by them doing it in that such a manner, they may feel like they're disrespecting that person. So
Yeah. Last question, really quick. Another one is, why do you think the Queen's English is considered the respectful thing? Like, why does everyone say be respectful and talk normal English, quote unquote?
it's proper and it's used mostly, and it shows like a level of, I guess, intelligence. So I guess, and then a lot of people could comprehend better with that language too. So
Yeah, so you feel like because more people understand.
yeah,
Sorry, one second. You feel because more people understand, then
yeah.
that's what it is. All right, thank you so much.
You should introduce my friend.
Introduce yourself, full name, please.
Patrick Amatha.
All right, thank you. I have 3 questions for you regarding our Bahamian Creole, or as people say it here, Bahamian dialect. The first one is, where do you think the Bahamian Creole came from, or like, do you know?
No, I mean, I guess it originated from, I guess, I don't know, people just breaking English up in the, how they think
Right.
things supposed to be said.
Yeah, but
I
you
guess.
don't know, they don't like teach it at school or anything, right?
No, I don't
Like,
know.
there's
No.
no history about it.
That's my boy.
Okay. The second question is, do you think it has to do a lot with their personal identity?
Yeah, I think it does.
You think it does?
Yeah.
How?
Because, I mean, it's a way, it's how we communicate, you know, that's
Right.
just our culture.
Mhm.
And I feel like if we didn't have it, it would,
That you wouldn't be
Bahamian,
right?
right.
So if you think if like someone was born here, like all their life they were like raised here and they didn't speak the Creole, you think they'd be considered less Bahamian?
not really, no.
Not really?
No, because, I mean, obviously that's all depends on how you grow up,
Yeah,
grew
yeah.
up, you know? Like, some people grew up in, let's say, a very strict home, or they grew up in a place where their parents only speak a certain way to them.
Yeah,
So that's how they grow up.
Yeah.
But I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
You think it'd be straight? All right. Last question is, why do you think our Bahamian Creole is like considered inaccurate and like disrespectful? You know, like when you're speaking, for example, I've said like a police officer, if they stop you, like you don't speak to them in like Bahamian Creole, like slang stuff, because they would consider it disrespectful. Why? Even though they're Bahamian, you know.
That's a really good question. I mean, wow, I mean, I don't know. Probably just the way we say it.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when we say stuff like, "Boy, like, nigga, get away from," you know, we,
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
say it in a disrespectful tone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you think
Now,
it's a
I
tone
don't.
too?
It might be the tone. I mean, nah, I can't say you can say it in any polite tone. Like, you
Yeah.
can't say, nigga. I don't know. You can't say it like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
but
I feel you.
I don't know. It's probably just the way we say it.
Yeah, I feel, yeah. All right. Thank you.
You forget the queen
Can you
question.
please state your full name, please?
Tiavion Malik Rogers.
Alright. So I have a couple questions for you regarding our Bahamian Creole. The first question is, where do you think our Creole came from, or if you know?
I don't know, Haiti or something. I don't know.
Haiti? Or
Yeah.
something? You think so? Alright. The second question is, why do you think it's considered disrespectful?
Because as Bahamians,
Uh-huh.
from where we started with English, you know.
Uh-huh.
All these illegal immigrants, they coming over. And they bringing their new language over. But us as Bahamians, we speak English. So I guess, you know, that's how we talk to each other.
Uh-huh.
And as we speak in the language of the illegal immigrants, that would be considered disrespectful.
Oh. So you think, alright, so immigrants, you mean it as in like when the British like colonized us, like the people that came after that and we speak their language? Is that what
Current
you mean?
illegal immigrants, you know. Haitians and
So
Yeah.
Haitians and
most of them are.
Spanish and etc.
Mhm.
Okay, okay. This was the second question that I forgot to ask. It was why like do you think it has to do a lot with our personal identity? Like as a Bahamian, like if you speak Creole, like Bahamian Creole, like do you think it makes you more or less Bahamian, or
I think so, you know. I think so.
you think it makes you more Bahamian if you speak the Creole, right?
Yeah, not too much, but just a little bit.
Just a little bit?
Yeah, like speak your language, you Bahamian, speak your language, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if you go to, I would see where you need to do it if you go to another place where you have to speak Creole or something. Right?
Yeah.
If you over here, most common language is English. You can also speak English if you speak English because you're Bahamian.
So you think Bahamian Creole and English are like the same? Like English and then Bahamian Creole, do you think they're like the same thing? No,
No, I don't
they're
think
two
they-
separate languages.
I think so.
Yeah, yeah. All right, thank you.
All right.
All right, can you please state your full name, please?
Patrick Jermaine Forbes.
All right. So my first question I want to ask you is, where do you think our Bahamian Creole comes from? Or if you know where it comes from.
Bahamian Creole
Yeah, our Bahamian like dialect.
or the culture?
Yeah. No,
I-
like the language, like how we,
how we speak.
Yeah.
I think it comes from a combination of being of English descent and the English people that was here before.
Yeah.
And slavery more than likely
Right,
condensing and making the language a little bit. I wouldn't want to say lazy, but more condensed. For example, like a lot of the words are combined. Like instead of give me, it's gimme.
Give me, yeah. So it's shortened. All right. So you think it comes from a combination of the English language and then the slaves, which were held here by the British.
Right, exactly. Modifying the language to become what I think to be Bahamian dialect. today.
Right. Okay, cool. The second question is, why? Do you think it's a big part of your self-identity, like the Bahamian, like being able to speak the Bahamian language, the broken English?
Yes. In my younger years, I didn't think it was so important because I took it for granted, probably like the average Bahamian does, because everyone around you spoke that way. However, my mom was a little strict in like language, so she was like, not necessarily down in it, but almost looked at it as like it wasn't a proper way to communicate, especially on a professional level. So when I got in other circles, I realized that I did modify my speech to make it easier for people to understand me, because when I lived in abroad, people would keep saying, what you say, what you say, what you say, so to make it more convenient for them and myself, I guess I learned to speak more articulately and more clearly. However, now looking back in retrospect, I think it's a huge part of culture, and I think it's a big part of our country's identity, because language is, it's part of what distincts a place from, other places.
And you think you're more Bahamian because you can speak the language?
Well, there is times where you can feel out of place if you don't know how to speak the language. That kind of way. Yeah. So
it's like as a foreigner, like if you go into a group that's speaking strictly like
Bahamian dialect, right? And you don't, then it almost subconsciously, without anyone saying it, it seems like you don't exactly fit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I mean, I'm a Bahamian, and I had that issue growing up because, like I said, I didn't always speak with a thick Bahamian dialect. As a matter of fact, I remember at one point in like 7th grade or so, they used to make fun of me. They say, "Oh, he used to call me American boy." He said, "He going to Nassau for 2 days and come back speaking American." So they made a joke like that. But so you have to deal with stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. So what you said earlier, you said that your mom was teaching you to like know the difference between speaking formally and the Bahamian, etc. And that's actually my third question, is asking, why do you think it's considered incorrect or disrespectful in a formal setting? And I wanted to ask you because you work here at a restaurant.
Right.
So like when speaking like to client or like even to,
Right.
my mom doesn't really care, but like other people have bosses where they speak to them in like regular English, quote unquote.
Right.
Or like
Well,
even if you're talking to a police officer, you do the same thing, right?
Yes, and I think the reason for that, it's not really spoken, but it's kind of a signal of education. So when people speak with a dialect, it seems like most people who are uneducated speak with the heavier dialect, and people who might be a little bit more educated or just well-traveled speak with a more clearer. Even though they still have traces of the Bahamian dialect, they speak a little bit more articulately.
Right.
Now, here's the caveat to that also. I have 2 sons,
Right.
and they were born abroad.
Okay, yeah.
And I love the fact that they speak differently from everyone else here.
Right.
But the whole reason I brought them here was so that they can learn to speak like Bahamians and learn their Bahamian culture.
Right.
Because I don't want them to grow up and then be like, oh yeah, I'm Bahamian descent, but doesn't know what that means or doesn't know what that sounds like. Or if they hear a Bahamian talking, they can't recognize it because they don't know what it sounds like to hear Bahamian speak.
Yeah, and then make people question, being like, but you really Bahamian?
Right,
Like,
exactly.
Yeah, that's
so it is a staple of culture. You know what I mean? The language.
Yeah.
And I didn't want them to grow up without having that knowledge. Even though I'm proud of the fact that they do not speak it thickly. They speak almost like Americans, but they have their own individuality, and you can hear traces of their Bahamian dialect coming out more and more, especially now that they go to school here and they live here.
Right. That's good. All right, thank you so much.
Oh, you're very
State your
welcome.
full name.
Milton Hall.
All right, thank you. So I have a couple of questions regarding our Bahamian Creole, and the first one would be, where do you think or where do you know that our Bahamian Creole came from?
Okay, well, as far as I know, the Bahamian dialect, slang, Creole, if you want to call it, is a combination of African language and also just broken English. So that's basically what I've known the Bahamian Creole to be. It's not standard English, but it's something that has derived from a lot of the black ancestors who came over as slaves, and that influence of learning the English language. They developed a language, and some of it has a lot to do with bringing some of the words from their language over into our speech. For instance, you have the word Esu, which is an African custom, an African practice. And so that is something that is still practiced in Bahamian society today. It's the same word that is used. And so you can see that's evidence there to show that a lot of the language or the words that is used comes from the African language. And like I say, also, it's the broken English as well. Persons not pronouncing words accurately or correctly.
Really quick, I want to also ask, because I'm trying to make the point that, I mean, there's not a lot of people that know of the history of our language or of our Creole. So I wanted to ask if, like, how do you know that information, if you just had to put two and two together, or did they teach you this like at school or anywhere else? Because I mean, other people that I've interviewed, they've said no, it's not taught. Like, people don't like straight up tell you where it came from or like teach you it.
Okay, now it is taught in schools.
Yeah.
Probably not to a great extent, but there are in particular the study or the subject of social studies. It does come up in the social studies curriculum, whereby they have to explore different nationalities and also the practices or customs of Bahamians. And so the children are taught where these customs come from, also the language, the food, and everything else. And so it is taught in school, but probably not a lot. The emphasis probably isn't. There's not great emphasis on that particular area so much, but it is taught.
I could agree to that. Maybe it's just like passed by, because as I talked to younger students and as I interviewed them, they had like almost like no complete idea of where it came from, but it could be that it was taught but it wasn't emphasized enough. The second question is, do you think it has to do a lot with your personal identity?
The language that we
the
speak.
language itself, yeah.
Well, I think it does. It has a lot to do with your personal identity. For instance, there are in some communities, for instance, on certain islands, the way certain words are pronounced is not quite pronounced the same as on other islands. So, for instance, I think on the island of Andros, sometimes the V's are W's or the W's are V's. Some people leave off certain, the beginning sounds of certain words. That H sound is not put on a lot of words, so you have people leaving the H off. So depending on where you are brought up, it would influence your speech, it would influence the way you communicate. And then some words are just unique, probably to certain communities. And so I think it does have a lot to do with shaping who you are as a Bahamian.
Right, okay. And do you think it makes you feel more Bahamian, less Bahamian, or just to be able to speak the language? Like if you was raised as a Bahamian but you didn't have the chance to learn the language, do you think people would consider you less or more Bahamian, or you would consider yourself more or less Bahamian?
But I think you still learn the language, even it's something that's spoken every day. So it isn't. You may not use, depending on the home that you were brought up in, you may not use it as frequently, but you're gonna hear it on a daily basis. I don't think that speaking it makes you less than, and I don't think that not speaking it is gonna make you less Bahamian. I think it's a part the culture, you participating or identifying in, I guess, the various customs, practices, the way you eat, the music that you listen to, all of those things factor in or influence what you would identify as one being a Bahamian.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So it's like a small factor in a bigger, broader
If you want to say.
category kind of thing. Okay. My last question is, why do you think people consider our Creole or dialect, etc., disrespectful or inaccurate?
Well, well, because I think it has to do with the fact that number one, we're heavily, well, we have been governed. We were British colony, and so there's a standard that has been established from the British Empire, or British, us, the Bahamas, being a part of being colonized, and so therefore the language, the education, all of those things have been passed down to us today. It still does influence the way we operate and function, and so therefore, with that being the standard, it is basically a requirement, or it is required for persons in order to be able to communicate, if you want to say accurately, or to be able to communicate in such a way that you would be effective persons would be able to understand. And so, too, especially in a society where everything's moving to like a more global environment, you have to be able to communicate with persons from around the world. And I think that if there's a standard, then that's what's going to be promoted. I wouldn't say, well, I think I can say, with that being the case, that would persons would look down on using the dialect. I don't see anything wrong with using the dialect, but it does have its place. And so, therefore, I would not go and speak with someone, say, from the U.S., Canada, in Bahamian dialect, or use words that are only unique to Bahamians, because there would be problems with understanding, and so therefore, having a standard is still good, but I don't think it should be totally eliminated in terms of you communicating with your own. So, if you want to say disrespected, I wouldn't quite say it's disrespected, but it's just something that you would not use when you're communicating outside or with outsiders.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I hope that's clear.
Yeah, that is for
I
sure.
was not that confused.